fading. 'Cause I'm sick of standing up instead of going down. I'm sick of never being able to cross the line. I'm sick of pretending everything is fine. You got it, you just a fucking break like me. I'm sick of standing up instead of going down. I'm sick of never being able to cross the line. I'm sick of pretending everything is fine. You got it, you're just a fucking freak like me. Fucking freak like me, yeah. A fucking freak like me, yeah.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thursday night. It's party time. We're the Video Bros, and we're on a whole new format here. I am Bobby Munson. That man beside me, you might not know him yet, but if you don't, let me introduce you to him. His name is Papa Smokes. There we go, Papa Smokes. We're doing this in fashion here tonight on Thursday night. We are live both on YouTube and on Twitch here tonight under our own platform, the Video Bros Network, and we're happy to be bringing you guys the first ever edition live of Ring Respect Radio. And at the half, we're going to bring you the very first edition of our new MLW review show that is called Fusion. Pop Smokes, I'm psyched. How are you doing tonight, man?
Munson, I'm doing great, and I'm also real pumped up to be doing this again on our live YouTube channel, doing it live, bringing it to the people, bringing it to the wrestling nations. I am loving it.
And speaking of those people, we got Turnbuckle Studios. That's our good man, Carl, and also Joe over there. Good shout out to you guys, and great job that you did on Turnbuckle Talk this week. Loved the show. Hell yeah, Bobby and Papa Smokes. You got that right. And our good friend Ed Fries. Ole, sir. Ole. And we also got another person here. Shout out to Cloud. Yes, sir. Good to have you in the show here tonight. Glad you could come on. And, of course, the Chris Parrish man taking over on Tuesday night with Astrid. One hell of a show. There's been a lot of great programs this week, Papa Smokes. Again, we got great people out there like Turnbuckle Studios, Backbreaker Media, our good friend Mike the Rep doing some kick-ass stuff over there. Of course, Chris Parrish and Astrid kicking ass on Tuesday night. Everybody from Mel and Andre doing their thing over at Backbreaker and also on their own as well, too. A big shout out to everyone that's putting out lots of fantastic fucking content. And I'm allowed to say that because guess what? It's our own fucking show, Papa Smokes, and I'm going to be myself for a change.
Fuck yeah, Munson. Glad to hear it.
And cheers to that as well, too. Hey, Papa Smokes, I don't know if you've got a drink beside you, but tonight I'm hitting up the number 9. This is the small batch number 9. This is the good stuff right here. We're doing it big, celebrating the very first Fusion and the first live Ring Respect Radio. For those who don't know, Pop Smokes and I have been doing Ring Respect Radio now for the good portion of about 6 years. I've been putting out episodes talking about the history of professional wrestling and sometimes a little bit of a mix of the new stuff as well, too. If you have any questions for us there in the chat here tonight, please engage and let us know what you want to know from the two of us. But tonight, our main focus on the Ring Respect Radio side of things, we're going to be talking about the legend himself, Judo Gene Labelle, a man that we lost just recently. It was on August 9th at the age of 89, I believe. He passed away in his sleep. But, man, talk about a guy who could still kick your ass from the grave. Papa Smokes, Judo Gene Labelle. I had to come up with this one. I am a big fan. I've watched his training video so many times over because not only is it entertaining, but damn, is there some good lessons you can learn from this man.
Yeah, and Judo Gene, a legend in his world, in the worlds of pro wrestling and martial arts fighting, and he's a guy that really spanned the gap between the old style of American boxing and the new styles of martial arts in the U.S. Before Judo Gene, there was only really boxing that was popular in the U.S. Judo Gene brought all the other styles around to the people.
Yeah, definitely. So, and we're getting all the RIPs from the audience as well, too. Thank you. And damn, Bob Smokes, if I'm looking correctly, did I just see 18 viewers up on that screen on a Thursday night. That's a big 1-8 on a Thursday for the video bros. Booyah, this is awesome. Way to go. We got Ed coming in. Labelle is the Labelle lock name from D. Bry. Yes, I believe that would be 100% true there, Mr. Ed. You bet. And then we got Jupiter Vision. Hey, y'all, all Jupiter Vision, thank you for joining in. And man, Mike the ref is here. Mike, man, so glad to have you on the first live edition of Ring Respect Radio for everything you ever did for Papa Smokes and I. Man, it is only possible that we're here today because you kept pushing forward for us. Thank you for everything you ever do. And Try 26, I know that's coming from you, Mike. You're helping out all the time. Love it. And moving on up, boys. You bet we are, man. I'm at a loss for words. When I see those kind of numbers, Papa Smokes, it just makes me absolutely humbled that people are ready to spend their Thursday nights partying with the video bros. Thank you, each and every one of you, for taking the time out. And yes, Parrish coming in. We got Mike first, 25 people in here, and so many viewers makes me wonder what's love got to do with that. That's right. Get the V out. Ole, here we go. So getting back to Mr. Judo Gene Labelle here, so we can get a little back on track. Of course, it's what we try to do inevitably here on the show. So he was called the Godfather Grappling, the Godfather of mixed martial arts. This guy had what is known today as the very first MMA match in the history of our world.
Yeah, the first televised match in America for sure was his match that came on TV in 1963, and a famous TV event, and no one will ever forget it. And like I say, that America's sport by this time up to the 60s was always boxing, and they didn't know or really trust the martial arts. And when Judo Gene came in and beat the boxer in the match, it was a watershed moment for sport in the U.S. It was that martial arts had come to stay, and boxing wasn't necessarily the strongest of the martial arts.
Yeah, you bet. So I want to know how much you know about the ranks that Judo Gene was given over the years, especially in the 2000s by the martial arts committees and stuff, like a ninth Dan in jiu-jitsu. I don't know if you got into the whole what that means in the world of jiu-jitsu, Papa Smokes, but I'm pretty sure you're the knowledge guy around here, so I'm going to turn to you on that one.
Yeah, well, the way most dojos work it is that you either have a belt colored system where it's you get a green belt, a yellow belt, a red belt, purple, and all the colors. This is more for kids for a sense of accomplishment so that they don't give up. A lot of the classes for adults, you're a white belt until you're a black belt kind of thing, and there's none in between. But at any rate, a black belt can take you 10 years to achieve. And then they say if you keep going hard, it's 1 year for each Dan level after that. Okay. But they get exceedingly more difficult as you go along those black belt Dan levels. And some of them you will have to go to the country of origin of your martial art, such as, some of the Brazilian jiu-jitsu dojos. They will require that you go to Brazil and study and test under some of the masters. Same with the martial arts from Asia, Japan, Korea, China, all that kind of stuff. They can require that you go over and get your higher Dan testing with the masters from the mother country.
And he was also given this honor as well, too, in the judo world. So both in judo and jiu-jitsu. But it was in, I think, 2004, the World Martial Arts Masters Association promoted him to a 10th degree level with them, too. So, again, that honor that goes up, the higher the number is. I don't know if anybody on record, at least in terms of fame-wise, has ever been on that same level as Judo Gene was.
Yeah, you have to be one of the greats, like pretty much a household name to have a 10th degree black belt in anything. I'm sure that some guys such as Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee and such might have had 10th dans. It means that you spent your entire life studying this. And even those last one or two might just be decided and given to you by your sensei or your instructor.
And those numbers keep rising. I'm looking at the top there, Papa Smokes. Thank you to everybody tuning in tonight. Man, this is a great feeling. Thank you, one and every all of you. Damn, this feels good. I'm at a loss for words. But getting back to Judo Gene, I know you're gonna love this topic right here, but his trainer. He was originally trained in catch can wrestling as well as boxing as well, too. So a very well diverse fighter, and was trained by someone I know you're gonna know a lot about, Bob Spokes, Mr. Ed Strangler Lewis.
Yeah, and all wrestling fans know of Strangler Lewis's name, one of the greats of the 20s and 30s. He was a catch wrestler or a shooter or a hooker, as they like to call them, a guy that gets his hooks into you and you tap out sort of thing. Strangler Lewis, again, a household name, one of the most famous wrestlers of all time. He owned 2 decades by himself where there was no one else close to his fame and skill level. So, yeah, the thing I read said that Labelle started with him when he was under 10 years old. So, imagine the pedigree that gives you, and how tough this kid's going to end up being when he's getting taught how to stretch from Strangler Lewis at such a young age.
And yes, people listening in, Papa Smokes used the word hooker on our show here tonight, just for the record.
won't be the last time.
That's right. So let's talk about the televised MMA match as it is. This came about when a professional boxer named Milo Savage basically made it very clear that he felt that boxing was the premier fighting style, that nobody on the planet would be able to defeat a boxer in any form of fighting. We got to see what Parrish wrote here. Can we not agree nickname, last name as the actual name is so underrated? That's a lot of name talk right there, Parrish.
Yeah.
But Milo Savage, the boxer, he believed that nobody could beat him in any form of fighting. And that's where Judo Gene, and this is going to become a theme as we talk about a couple of more events from Judo Gene's life, or at least one in particular. He says, well, you know what? To that, hold my beer. And we're going to prove you wrong. So Judo Gene has the first televised MMA matchup on TV against Milo Savage. And from what Judo Gene tells of the story, and again, Milo Savage might have told a different part, is that they tried everything they could. Look who's joining us, Papa Smokes. I know that name very, very well. It is wonderful for you to join us here tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate you. Awesome. Very awesome. But yeah, my man. So as the saying goes, Milo Savage apparently had greased up his gi going into this fight, making it near impossible for Judo Gene Labelle to be able to use his wrestling tactics or his ground and pound, his catch can style against him. He also had put, the brass knucks inside of the actual boxing gloves is the claim as well, too. And yet, even with all this going in the favor of Milo Savage, Judo Gene Labelle still manages to go out and defeat this man. Took him to the limit and beat his ass right in that fight.
Yeah, I listened to an interview with Labelle where he talks about that match, and the Savage's corner had imposed so many rules concerning the fight right on the day of the fight that hadn't been agreed upon before, such as Labelle not being able to use various takedowns and various strikes, and that's why Labelle's corner got Savage to wear the gi top, because they had to make some concession in this or it was too one-sided. But of course they didn't know the difference between a karate gi and a judo gi. So he's wearing a karate gi that's tighter and it's different. It's not the kind of gi top that you use for grappling. So that was throwing Labelle off a little bit too. But in this interview, he just said, I wasn't going to get much of a chance to take this guy down. But he knew boxing as well. So Labelle drew him in by putting his hands up in protection. But then he said he kept dropping that right hand so that Savage would throw his right hand. And then he counterattacked from that. He drew him in with the counterattack a couple times and took him down and then started to work the man. And of course, what can a boxer do when he's laying on his back on the mat and can't get up on his feet? There's no legal attack or defense really that he can do. So I think Gene just worked him around for a little bit, gave him a few, twisted the arm, twisted the leg a little bit, and then put him unconscious with the rear naked choke.
Yep.
And the fans weren't too happy about that because they were all boxing fans. started throwing beers and rocks and various things into the ring, and then it ended up that Labelle and his corner had to come back to the ring and revive the boxer because the referee in his own corner didn't know how to do it. So they brought him out of the sleeper hold kind of thing, and it still didn't make him any more popular that night.
Yeah, and you know what, Gene Labelle, I mean, the story is going to continue into another attack that he did that's become very famous with his name. He just had these moments that really make him stand out like a legend, and he goes and does that, takes all that heat from the crowd like a true fighter, and goes back there and still brings his opponent back up to his feet. Man, like, what an absolute legend to go and do that kind of work all in one night. When, I mean, a crowd back then, especially a heated crowd like that, you don't know what those sons of bitches could have done.
Yeah, there's somebody tried to stab him when he left the ring too, and it was a volatile crowd for sure. And things were different in those days too. People didn't sit there and politely clap and applaud their competitors. They were fully invested in it and wanted to try and do something about it.
Yeah. So from there, we want to start talking a little bit about the wrestling side of things. Now, just so everybody knows, Gene Labelle, more so an MMA judo guy and stuff like that, but he does have his place in professional wrestling. I mentioned about the wrestling training video that he's got that is thoroughly entertaining while at the same time showing you a lot of great wrestling holds and everything like that. I recommend go and check it out. You can find it on YouTube. So when you get the opportunity, definitely after this show, definitely go over to YouTube and check out Gene Labelle over on YouTube and find that training video. Papa Smokes, have you yourself checked it out?
Yeah. And I was also going to say the first time I ever knew in my life of Judo Gene Labelle was when I was a tiny little kid. In our house, we all had, maybe it was the same for you, we all had the siblings and the parents had their own little collection of books and stuff, but in the rumpus room or the family room in the basement, there was a shelf with all kinds of books just for anyone from the family to read. And on that shelf was Judo Gene Labelle, Pro Wrestling Finishing Holds, it's called. And it was my brother that came across that book, and I was always fascinated with it as a kid. And that's kind of ironic now because that book is so influential in pro wrestling for all the submission holds and many other finishing maneuvers that you see nowadays and throughout the 70s, 80s, and up till now. So that I was fascinated with that book as a kid, never realizing what an influential book for pro wrestling it was to become.
Yeah, and we got shout out to Cloud saying old school wrestling clouds were filled with savages. Yeah, exactly. And you know what, Papa Smokes, I got to ask, were you one of those savages back in the old days of watching wrestling? Did you ever get a little bit rough out there?
No, I don't think so. There may have been a couple of times when I was already smart to the business to a certain extent, but still with some guys and doing some drinking and stuff. But we never attacked any wrestlers physically or anything, or fans for that matter. But so yeah. No, I'd rather watch than be kicked out.
That's a fair assessment. And I'm in the same boat as well too. Got in there, boo the bad guys, cheer the good guys, do all that kind of fun stuff, just like you're supposed to do. But hey, sometimes you have a few too many Labrewskis. You might get a little bit over the top. You might say a few things you regret later, but
yeah.
So Judo Gene, speaking of the wrestling side of things, after retiring from judo, he ran the NWA LA territory with his brother. I know you probably a little bit more familiar with this side of things, Pop Spokes, with the NWA and the different territories. Were you very familiar with the one running out of LA?
Yeah, somewhat. It was the NWA's territory for Los Angeles counties, so to speak, the main city of Los Angeles. It's called NWA Hollywood, and they just like any of the other territories, they ran spot shows, they ran 4 or 5 big shows throughout the year, and this is going to lead me into a big part of what I want to talk about with Labelle too, is the Olympic Auditorium in Santa Monica in Los Angeles, which is inexorably a big part of Gene Labelle's story, because to skip back to the beginning, he was born to to parents that were promoters. His mom was Eileen Eaton, who is a famous boxing and wrestling promoter from Los Angeles from the 40s and 50s and 60s. She worked her whole life, and they took over the Olympic Auditorium, which had been a building since the early 20s, but they leased it, bought it, so to speak, took it over, and started running boxing, wrestling, and roller derby, as well as occasional concerts and stuff like that. But it was a nice size venue of 10,000 odd capacity. And yeah, that's where Labelle. It's kind of funny because he went to martial arts and back to pro wrestling, but really, if you look at it, he started in pro wrestling because his family was involved in promoting that. No doubt that's how he knew Ed Strangler Lewis to be able to start training with him at age 8 or whatever. And their family is just rich with the Olympic Auditorium, which is one of the more famous pro wrestling venues. Not a thing anymore. I think the building still stands. I think it's some kind of a church now, but for the longest time, it's been one of the most famous wrestling venues in America.
Yeah, you bet. So speaking back to when wrestling meets boxing, here's another interesting fact we can talk about for a minute. Judo Gene Labelle was a referee at one point. In fact, he was the referee for the infamous matchup when wrestling met boxing, and Muhammad Ali took on Antonio Inoki. Whether you like that match or not, it happened, and Judo Gene Labelle was there to make sure things didn't get out of hand.
Yeah, and that will also be a recurring theme in Labelle's career too, is that he was never, I think, completely invested in being a professional wrestler or anything like that. But the people at Olympic Auditorium and wherever he went wanted him around because he was a tough guy, and he was a guy that the locker room feared. So if you ever had any shenanigans, you thought something bad might happen, perhaps there's a media scrum with a fight going to happen in the locker room afterwards. Maybe somebody doesn't want to drop their belt and is thinking of leaving with the belt after their match. You would have Gene Labelle there at ringside, and nobody ever tried anything on that guy.
Well, let's speak about his toughness just outside of judo, wrestling, boxing. That's easy enough. But a lot of people know that Steven Seagal's a bit of a legitimate tough guy, especially back in his day when he was putting out action movies. Gene Labelle also has appeared in quite a few movies, but Steven Seagal had a chip on his shoulder that nobody could beat him up. There wasn't a man on this planet that could choke him out, period. And Judo Gene Labelle said, once again, hold my drink. I'm going to prove to you why I'm the most badass MFer on this goddamn earth. And he went out, and as the story is told, and again, there's some that try to dispute it, he choked out Steven Seagal on set and might have had a not so pleasant accident when Steven Seagal soiled himself in the process.
Yeah, I've heard that story for a long time, and it seems hard to get confirmation or denial on this story, but there are just as many people that say it's true as to say it's false. But Steven Seagal has some movies and got famous for a while there, but isn't really a very likable guy in some circles, I don't think, including the martial arts world. There's a lot of question as to his toughness too, I think, because he practices that Aikido, and it's an art that it doesn't really so much involve striking and takedowns and stuff. It's using the opponent's own momentum. So if you've ever watched any videos of Seagal or some of the other guys practicing it, it looks cooperative, like it looks like dancing kind of almost, or gymnastics. So there's a lot of people that aren't really sure about Seagal and his art and all that. And I imagine Labelle was one of them. And true or not, I don't think Steven Seagal could hold a candle to Gene Labelle if they were to actually throw down.
Yeah, and you know what? I love the story so much that I'm just going to make believe that it happened for sure, because I want to believe that Judo Gene Labelle took Steven Seagal down, period. But yeah, go check out Judo Gene, definitely on film. He's been in many, many movies as well, too. He's got involvement in so many different things, from writing books to movies to being in television, but also as a trainer. Like, we could talk about this for a minute. This guy is the man responsible for training, or one of the men responsible for training, former UFC fighter and current WWE superstar Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, well, never mind Ronda Rousey. A lot of people, including Bruce Lee, who went to LaBelle to learn how to grapple because he could do all standing up fighting, but he wasn't versed in wrestling or jujitsu or any of the ground based attacks. So he, being both in the movie industry, he went to LaBelle, and LaBelle worked out with Bruce Lee for some say 6 months or so because uh, Lee wanted it for his to round out his style for the movies and all that. And there's also a story that may or may not be true that Gene LaBelle bitch slapped Bruce Lee and punched his teeth in or whatever, and that one seems to have no confirmation on it either. And LaBelle claims that he had a good relationship with Bruce Lee, but yeah, just a tantalizing rumor to say the least.
Oh, definitely. So, got to ask you though, Papa Smokes. According to the question that's up on the screen, what would you say is the best Gene LaBelle movie?
Geez, I'm not sure. I don't know a whole lot of them. He's been in tons of martial arts movies, a bunch of Sonny Chiba movies. He's been in one or two Bruce Lee movies. He's been in some Elvis movies. Like a lot of the times, he would just be in some regular movie. But if there was a scene where someone got in a fight or someone broke up a fight, they would use an expert, right? They would have Gene LaBelle as the guy in there. So lots of them are just tiny cameos and such. I don't think he was ever the star of any movies.
No. Yeah, and I mean, again, you could go check out his cameo in stuff like Man on the Moon, where they're referencing Andy Kaufman's time wrestling with Jerry Lawler. You can also check him out in Raging Bull, which is another classic as well, too. So stuff like that, where people don't always know that Gene LaBelle is there because he's that guy that maybe you don't know, but now hopefully that's the idea behind the show here tonight, is that we'll get you familiar with the guy. And when you see him next time, when you're watching one of these classic films, you'll be like, hey, shit, now I know where that guy's from. I heard all about it on Ring Respect Radio. Is there anything else you want to add to the talk with Gene LaBelle, Papa Smokes, before we turn it over to any possible questions, or before we turn it over to the next edition of the show?
Yeah, there's one thing I'd like to say, and that is I was talking about the Olympic Auditorium in Santa Monica. There is a writing by the famous Los Angeles writer Charles Bukowski. If you're familiar with his work at all, he's very, very famous writer from Los Angeles. Wrote a lot of stuff from the gutter and from the bars and from Skid Row and all that stuff. And I came across a nice quote, Charles Bukowski on the Olympic Auditorium. This is a quote. Even the Hollywood boys knew the action was at the Olympic. Raft came and the others and all the starlets hugging those front row seats. The gallery boys went ape and the fighters fought like fighters, and the place was blue with cigar smoke. And how we screamed, baby, baby, and threw money and drank our whiskey. And that's the kind of wrestling era that Gene LaBelle comes from and personifies. I just thought that quote was perfect for a talk about LaBelle in the Olympic Auditorium.
Yeah, man, that's a perfect way to end off this homage to the legendary Judo Gene Labelle. We hope that you guys have learned a little bit. If you have any questions, feel free to share them with us. Also, if you have any stories you want to tell us, or matches or anything like that you ever want to share from classic wrestling, always reach out to Papa Smokes and I. Papa Smokes, while we're still on the ring respect topic, but as many people may not be familiar yet, because we have a lot of you here and some of you might not be too familiar with us. Papa Smokes and I not only been doing Ring Respect Radio for quite some time, we also have been doing commentary in professional wrestling for some time as well, too. We started out as commentators, and that's how we met, was working for HIW as commentators, and grew this friendship and all this from there. Now we work for Prairie Pro Wrestling here in Saskatoon. And I just want to share, that's the poster coming up for next Saturday, September the 24th. It's a September slobber knocker in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So if you're able to join us live, please do. But you could also catch matches starting to release every Saturday on YouTube, where we call all the shots there on the commentary team. But I want to talk about the two listed matchups here with you, Papa Smokes. We've got, first of all, the main event for that night. It is the rematch champion, the first ever Prairie Pro Wrestling heavyweight champion, first and only, Sheik Akbar Shabazz. He's going to be defending against Cannonball Kelly, and only his second title defense so far. Man, Cannonball was that close to winning the damn championship in the first place. What do you figure this time around? Does Sheik have it to go in there and pull it off or to one more time? Does he have the chance to retain? We know Tommy Gallivan took him to the limit last time out. Cannonball has been in his head a little bit. Does Cannonball have a bit of an edge going into this one?
Well, and this is a rematch too. We've seen these two battling to attain the PPW belt for the very first time. We watched them in qualify for the championship match in a battle royal. We watched them smash the hell out of each other in a ladder match. And now we've got a big title defense for Sheik Shabazz coming up with Cannonball Kelly. He asked me to pick it. It's a tough one to pick because these guys are very different. The Sheik is long and lean and likes to break the rules and use a lot of strength. Cannonball, low center of gravity, heavy, and likes to brawling all the time. He's fearless and merciless with brawling, and they will be out in the crowd. There will be metal objects used, steel chairs, all kinds of stuff. As far as rematches go, I can't get enough of this one, and I want to see more.
I love this comment from Mike. Sheik will break Cannonball's back and make him humble. The announcement was paid for by the Shabazz fan club. Sheiky baby would love you for that one, Mike. That's for sure. Yeah. But at the same time, Cannonball's got Johnny Two Fingers, the rock and roller, in his corner. Man, I love Johnny. He's fantastic, and he can play a role. He can play a factor in this. Sheik takes his eye off the prize, gets distracted by Johnny on the outside. We could be seeing a new PPW champion next Saturday.
Yeah, as much as I like the Sheik and his reign of terror that he has going on in PPW, I think it's fully within the realm of possibility that we could have a new champ that night in Cannonball Kelly.
Oh, this is a fun comment. This is something I would say to Sheik, but I would only say it while I'm online because I would never say that to his face because I'm actually afraid of the guy. He scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's bring that poster up one more time because we got one more match we're going to talk about. We're talking about the grudge match there. It is El Assassino taking on Colton Kelly. Colton Kelly, who just joined Prairie Pro Wrestling over the last little bit, just this year. He's had a couple of matches with us so far. He is undefeated, 2 wins under his belt, and he is now going to go against probably one of the most decorated professionals here in Saskatchewan and in Western Canada, somebody who has held many titles. He will go to the extent of anything to win. He is dangerous. He is violent. He is El Assassino.
Yeah, this is going to be one hell of a clash. And like you say, we've seen a couple of Colton Kelly's matches since he's been here. He's very intense. This guy doesn't come out to lose or draw a match. This guy comes out to win as well. So I think these two are going to hit head to head like a couple of mountain goats. I think it's going to be a battle of wills and a battle of egos. And El Assassino, I think also some frustration there. His win-loss record since the debut of PPW is not so great. And you can see that he's getting pissed off about that. You can see it in his attitude. It's even worse than ever, if you can imagine that. And I think Colton Kelly's in for a real surprise. I think he's got his hands full and vice versa, too. This is going to be a match. I could see this getting out of control in a big hurry.
It's going to get ugly. You know that El Assassino brings trouble wherever he goes, but at the same time, he brings quality inside that ring. So this is going to be one hell of a fight, one hell of a match. The PPW Nation are going to be excited for it, and we hope that anybody that's joining us is going to be having the hell of a time. But if you can't, again, we'll get that up on YouTube eventually for you. You'll be able to check those matches out down the road on our YouTube channel over there. Papa Smokes, that's going to bring an end to the Ring Respect portion of this show. But again, we promised you guys we're going double feature on Thursday night. So if you're like us, you might be a little bit up there in age. Sometimes you need to take a potty break halfway through. So you got to go take, a misty little spray. Just go do that. We're going to give you 2 minutes, a little bit of a Fusion intro heading your way. We're coming right back with our first ever episode of MLW Fusion right here on the Video Bros Network.
I made this shit last. Burning down to the wake up call, to the sun grows cold, to the making it down. Judgment is what they find, that's so deep out of space of judgment. I'm back in your past, you find why I can't run. Why? Stop talking, what's begun, free run. Someday it's time, don't let me out of time. Gotta see me now, night, so I don't let you go. And I don't like the way you smile upon me. What's the meant to be for you? All I see is the emptiness you left behind. Have to go back, pushing through my bones. 歩いた道の途中で迷子になったの。誰かの騒音だって言われても答え出せない。Hear me out from the unknown. 何度繰り返せよ。Stay tired to be dead. 見逃してゆく。
In spite of everything I did for her, she kept taking me for granted and showed no mercy in fading me away. But that time has come and gone, now everything we need is in our hands. So draw a line in the sand and repeat after me.
I won't look back to what cannot be changed. 変えられない過去でも I won't look back to what cannot be changed. ただ進めば焼き付くなら
Anyway, welcome to the very first edition of MLW Fusion, our MLW Fusion review show here on the Video Bros Network. You got used to seeing us on Thursday nights doing these MLW reviews, and yes, I'm going to go to the comment section right now. Carl Kickass doing You Bet. That one actually is from I'm missing the dude's name right now. I think it's Peter Aya, something like that. A good friend of the guys in On Lap. He's done some wonderful work with them as well, too. That is one of his kick-ass tracks. And then going over here, not going to lie, I'm high right now and thought my TV was on fire from the heat. Y'all are bringing tight. Yeah, brother. You know what? I might have thought that, too, because guess what? I'm up there with you right about now. So we got, oh, hey, look who's in the house. Wrestling Rodeo. Whoa, thank you, my man, for joining us here tonight. Good to see you out here. MLW Fusion is still not happening yet, Papa's folks. They're still on a little bit of a sabbatical. And, over on the other program, we've been doing a little bit of a retroactive look. And, hey, we weren't going to leave you guys in the dust on a Thursday night because what else are you going to be doing on Thursday? You going to go watch television? Nah. No, there's nothing good on TV. Other Twitch channels? No, there's nothing good on other Twitch channels. That's why you're right here partying with the Video Bros. We're having a hell of a time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, staying tuned in, and having a good time. Papa Smokes, MLW Fusion episode 101. This is one that I wanted to check out. This one had a big main event attached to it, a match between Filthy Tom Lawler and Killer Cross that we are going to get to in a short bit here. But damn, this whole episode of MLW Fusion in general, this was a wrestling show, if I ever saw one.
Yeah, good pick, Munson. There's lots of strong episodes of Fusion that we probably haven't seen, but this was a good, fairly recent one to go to that I hadn't watched before, and really good episode. Let's get into this.
Yeah, we sure will. So we started things off with a little bit of a recap from Fatu taking on Shima from the previous week on episode 100 of MLW Fusion. The champ absolutely annihilating the legend Shima and then putting him in the body bag and taking him out on the stretcher. What a scene of complete destruction that Contra has continued to be on ever since their introduction to MLW.
Yeah, and this is like, we have to remember that we saw the faction known as Contra for a couple of years ruling and running over MLW, but this is the this is the early days of that. This is the first time they put someone in the body bag and had the Sentai Death Squad carry them out on the stretcher. Very foreboding and scary kind of thing to watch for opponents of Jacob Fatu and Contra units. So excellent psychological tactics in use there by Joseph Samael, Fatu, and the boys.
Yeah, man, it was something to recap. I think we almost need to go back and watch that episode one of these nights here, Papa Smokes. But in the meantime, and in between time, as a famous commentator once said, we got down to the action inside the ring. First of all, we had the Laredo Kid coming out, being joined by Conan, and he was going to be taking on Myron Reed. They recapped the Laredo Kid had recently got a pinfall victory over the middleweight champion Myron Reed, and that it wasn't for the middleweight championship at the time. So here tonight, he's getting that opportunity to go one-on-one with the champ for the title. And this one had a little bit of personal animosity behind it. They did show a video package of backstage Conan giving an interview, and then Injustice interrupting Injustice, consisting, mind you, of Myron Reed, the young goat, Jordan Oliver, and Cotto Brazil at the time. They interrupt Conan. They have some choice words going back and forth, and this one just about came to blows.
Yeah, and isn't Conan a good promo guy? Hey, like he always pulls out something real good. And the young guys in Injustice were kind of like mocking him and giving him some trash talk and stuff, but you could see it wasn't affecting Conan, and he had choice words in reply for those guys. So setting up this match where we've already got a little bit of heat. The Laredo Kid has a non-title win over Myron Reed. Myron Reed himself a competitor. He's not the chicken shit kind of heel where he's always running from you. He wants the match. He wants to beat you fair and square one-on-one if he can. So despite that, this is the time where Myron Reed's wearing the chest protector so that nobody's chops work on his chest, and a few other tricks up his sleeve. This is at a time where he was more a rule breaker than we've seen him lately.
Yeah, and you know what? That was one of the notes that I wrote down too, because there was outside the ring where the Laredo Kid was doing the double chops to Myron's chest, and he was fake selling the move. He's holding the chest. And when Laredo Kid clued in, he's like, no, you SOB, you aren't actually hurt. So Myron challenges him to do it a third time. And Laredo Kid goes, okay. And it bang right across the face. He makes Myron Reed eat a slap sandwich. It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And these two guys, I mean, we've admired the work of the Laredo Kid before when there was a big influx of lucha wrestlers that came into MLW over the past 2 years. There was all kinds of special talents. Speaking of special talents,
we got Bing joining us.
Yeah, he just ate and now he wants in on the podcast. But at any rate, we liked the Laredo Kid as well as some of the other outstanding lucha talents we borrowed from AAA, such as Taurus and Penta, and I like Octagon Jr. a whole bunch too. But Laredo Kid, this guy's got all the tools that it takes to be one of the top lucha wrestlers, but we've also seen him with appearances on AEW and a couple other major companies as well. So this guy's can go anywhere, and I could see him following in the footsteps of Ray Phoenix and Penta and getting signed with a big company.
Now, if only the picture of the cat that Carl just posted was a little gray, I think it would be absolutely perfect, because Bing's attitude makes him that damn cool right there. He is one cool cat. But yeah, you know, Laredo Kid is really over the time. Like, the more I watch him, the more I really respect and like his work. It's clean, it's good, it's strong. He takes himself seriously, and he takes his matches seriously, and he gives you wrestling in there. He can do high flying and stuff like that, but there's logic and reason behind what he's connecting and putting together, and I really am enjoying his style. But, you know, as it goes, he's out there. He's got Conan in his corner. But unfortunately, you've got both Cotto Brazil and Jordan Oliver who are not afraid to get involved in this one and really kind of make those distractions happen, proving that Injustice in numbers can be a real handful.
Yeah, and this didn't throw off Laredo Kid. He took matters into his own hands and started knocking the Injustice guys off the apron. Then he gave them both flying suicide dives to the outside and basically took them out of contention in this match. The only drawback with doing something like that is that you might goad those outside wrestlers into action, into retaliating, and they weren't going to keep their noses clean while Myron's in the ring with a title match. That's for sure.
Yeah, you know, but that all led to that whole move where Myron does that ace crusher over the top ropes to the Laredo Kid right to the concrete. I was like, damn. I was like, I hope they're both alive after that move. That was sick looking.
Yeah, that was an insane bump. Well, they hit the apron first and then the floor. I don't think the apron's all that much softer than the floor.
Not much.
And then, that was a really good spot and really death-defying. On another note, I wanted to bring up this one sequence because people sometimes wonder about psychology and the way of laying out matches and stuff, and wonder why some people don't like it. There was one sequence in here where Reed gave the Laredo Kid a stunner. Then he jumped up on the second rope, bounced back, and gave him a flying cutter off the ropes, which looked awesome and was a completely huge bump. Then he got up and gave Laredo Kid a nice super kick to the side of the face, which also looked really stiff and looked really real. So now Reed he's done 3 big moves on Laredo Kid in the past couple seconds. He springs to the top rope faster than I've ever seen anybody get up on the top rope. He just grabbed the ropes and flung himself up with his feet, and he was going to do another move off the top rope. Laredo Kid already got up and was climbing up after him by the time this kind of takes a little bit of it away from me, because that trio of moves by Reed, as a viewer, you're looking at this and saying, ooh, 3 times in a row, 3 hard moves. That's got to keep that guy down just for a little bit, right? Then when he mounted the ropes, when Reed mounted the ropes so quickly, I thought, this is a really nice sequence. I like this. But as fast as he did that, and trust me, it was quick as a hiccup, as fast as he did that, Laredo Kid was right up there. And then they did the spot that was kind of like a German suplex, but a Spanish fly, where they both went over. Yeah. Which was, again, a really nice spot and a big old bump and everything, but I just didn't like how they got there. I'm not trying to crap on this match. It was a good match, and I like both these guys, and I know that they know how to lay out a match and all that. This is just one of the little things I like to bring up every now and again so that people understand why other people don't like certain matches or certain sequences and stuff. There are just some things that defy the believability of wrestling, even though we all know what's going on with wrestling. It makes it look a little bit phony when that happens. And I think wrestlers, when they lay out their matches, should watch out for things like that.
Yeah, and you're 100% there, Papa Smokes. I noticed that as well too. Again, it does irk me as well. But again, it as we've always said, it's one of those split hair things where it's like, if you're going to take one thing away from it, Laredo Kid, I don't think they should have had him pop up so quick. I think that the other big bump could have come, a minute later, something like that. They could have done something to lead up to it. They didn't have to rush it like they did. But other than that, again, this match was put together well from start to finish. Those distractions proved to be a big thing. The ace crusher to the outside, Myron Reed, then the springboard off the top ropes, and he retains that middleweight championship. And for those who haven't followed MLW before, this was the first run of Myron Reed as the MLW middleweight champion, mind you. And he is now the 3-time MLW middleweight champion as we currently speak, going into the new season, and the only wrestler in the history of Major League Wrestling to hold any of the championships on more than one occasion.
Yeah. And he had lost it to Leo Rush at one point, won it back from him, and then lost it to Tajiri and won it back from him as well. So not getting lost in the shuffle, he wins his rematches.
Yeah, he sure does. He makes it count, and he made his match count tonight. After this match was over, we went to a edition of the lifestyles of the rich and dynastic. So this is like in a coffee shop or a setting. I'm assuming it's got to be a coffee shop. I mean, we're talking Richard Holiday here. But now the dynasty doesn't quite look the same as they once did. When we last talked about these guys, this trio consisted of Richard Holiday, Alexander Hammerstone, and one Maxwell Jacob Friedman. But I think that he might have been a little bit busy at the time. So they brought in this young chap. I believe his name might be Gino Medina. I think we've talked about him a few times, Papa Smokes. Man, Gino looked out of place here a little bit. And I think it's just, I know what they were trying to do. They wanted to build him into something because there's a lot of potential. Gino Medina, like we've said, he's a good-looking kid. He gets it inside the ring. He's very capable. But speaking wise, there's work to be done, especially at this point. He was not ready for speaking on a camera on the level that, say, an Alexander Hammerstone or Richard Holiday were.
And in what's probably his second language as well, too. Let's not forget some of these young guys he's probably spoke Spanish for most of his life, and there's just not that same feeling of comfortability when you're speaking in your second tongue, not your mother tongue, kind of thing. So it's a difficult thing. I also get what they were going for. It's a good fit in a way because Medina's a slick, handsome-looking guy. He's an arrogant heel. He's kind of one of those guys that likes to look like he's rich and all that stuff. He does fit in the dynasty in a way, but it's a tough sell with the other guys in there, and he kind of looked like the third wheel sort of thing.
And especially taking over for somebody the level of Ben MJF as well, too.
Yeah.
Gino just wasn't quite on that level. And take nothing away, I'm not saying he never will be on that level. He has all the potential to be at that level. He just wasn't quite at that level yet. But he was going to be going one-on-one with Mance Warner on this program. This match was being set up. Gino Medina is undefeated, and Mance Warner has been getting under the skin of the dynasty. They did not want him anywhere near them. They wanted to... What was it? They were working on having him removed from MLW. Richard Holliday's lawyer/father was working on the paperwork to make sure that Mance Warner was gone so that he couldn't get his grubby fingernails, as they put it, on the dynasty.
Yeah, and fair enough. I mean, Richard Holliday, if he wants anything, it's not to have the hands of a drunken redneck with his dirty fingernails all over his rarefied air. So, just another way to get some heat going for this match. Mance Warner was a pretty big babyface style wrestler. I say babyface style because he wasn't a guy that obeyed the rules or anything like that. He had his death matches and other stuff like that, but he was one of those he's kind of like a heel that you like to cheer type thing. So, but he's on the side of the baby faces in this, and he's looking for a win over Gino Medina. This will prop up his stats a little bit towards possibly a title match or something.
Yeah, you bet. So we get down to the match, Gino Medina versus Mance Warner. And again, one thing I got to say, Mance Warner looks like an absolute psychopath. They call him the Southern psychopath, and he looks like a psychopath. Those eyes on that dude. I mean, if looks could kill, Mance Warner would be the champion everywhere he goes.
Yeah, and he does okay being a Southern psychopath for a guy that's from Seattle. But hey, man, you got to make a gimmick. You got to find something somewhere. He takes it and runs and does a good thing with it.
Yeah, and Gino tried to hot start the matchup. He jumped right into it, trying to go on the attack on Mance Warner, which worked for quite some time, actually. He took good control for the first portion of the match until they rolled to the outside, which is when Mance kind of took over from there. This had some good back and forth between these two, actually. There was some good wrestling inside that ring. I liked what I saw. Again, I felt like this wasn't quite as good as match number one, but it still broke up the card altogether for this episode of MLW Fusion and gave us still a very serviceable, good, solid matchup between these two gentlemen.
Yeah, it was pretty okay. Nothing blew me away about this match or anything like that. I think it was meant to elevate Medina without weakening the look of Mance, and the finish kind of suggests that was the case as well. It didn't seem to me like they had a whole ton of chemistry. Maybe it was the first time they were wrestling each other. That's possible as well. But I think this match did pretty good, showing that Medina could hang with Mance Warner, who's kind of a top of the card type guy. Maybe not main events all the time, but definitely towards the top of the card. So as we've known ever since we've been doing these reviews, you know that Court Bauer and MLW see something in Gino Medina the same way that we do. There's lots of raw tools that could be shaped into something good, and I think that process is ongoing. I'm not sure if it's happening fast enough for Court Bauer's liking or not, but this shows that they were putting some thought and some money and effort into Gino Medina. I hope that continues. Really, the last we saw of him, he was kind of slogging away in those six-man tag team matches against Microman and all that. So maybe that same level of push isn't there, but I wouldn't give up on Gino Medina yet. I also think there's something there with this guy.
Yeah, and he's still very incredibly young at this time too, so a lot of time on his hands. That is definitely in his favor. And as you said, a bit of a dusty finish. Gino Medina originally going to try to pull the tights of Mance Warner, or the jeans, whatever you want to call them, and it didn't quite work out as Mance Warner continued to roll up Gino Medina, and then used the same move on him, rolling up the tights 1, 2, 3, and handing Gino Medina his first loss, and a lot of frustration coming out of the dynasty after this one.
Yeah, but again, they give Warner the win, but even as a babyface, he has to cheat to win. So again, point goes to Medina a little bit in that this top of the card babyface has to cheat to beat the heel, and you don't see that all that often. So again, it just speaks to how highly they thought of Medina. They didn't want him to look bad in eating a loss.
Yeah, exactly. So this one played out nicely. It did exactly what it needed to do. So I had no problem with this match. I thought it was pretty good. It had its right place on the card. From there, we went to a video package. It was the Von Erichs with their father, Kevin Von Erich. They were talking about a recent squabble they've got going against Team Filthy. So this would have been after Filthy Tom Lawler turned on the Von Erichs and also brought in Team Filthy, Dominic Carini, and what is the other gentleman's name in the group there?
He was the guy that they were pretending was Rip Von Erich, like they were.
Kid Osborne, but there was another one
Yes.
part of Team Filthy as well too. Eric,
Kevin Koo eventually was there, but he wasn't there on this show.
Yeah, but they had somebody else there on this particular card too. It was Eric somebody that was
Eric
part
Stevens.
of it.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah.
Right,
so that's
right.
who was part of Team Filthy at the time, prior to Kevin Koo coming in and before Tom Lawler eventually leaving MLW. But this is good talk between the boys and their father. Of course, Marshall. You can really see that Marshall, when it comes to being on camera and talking, he's the revved up one. He's the really kick ass, wanting to get in there and start fighting type guy. Ross a little bit more level headed, a little bit more laid back, but man, it's great. Oh, it's okay, Astrid. You can be late. You can be anytime. But as long as you're here, we're happy to see you, Astrid. Thanks for joining in, as always. You missed it earlier in the night, but there you go. You get a second one from the Video Bros, because it's a double feature here on Thursday night, and we are sailing this ship straight to the moon. Where the hell was I? I'm talking about the Von Erichs again. Let's go back to that, Pops, folks. So these boys, Marshall cuts a hell of a promo. I really like when this guy starts talking. I believe he's going to go kick somebody's ass.
And yeah, I agree with that 100%. I also think the same thing of Kevin. I like it when he's on, and I like it when they let him talk. He plays the part of the kind of older mentor, the teacher, the father figure so well, and giving them advice and telling them stories of his life when he was a wrestler and how things used to be, and how the boys have to take the lessons from that and find their own way in the wrestling biz. I like those promos with the boys and their dad. They ring true, and it's just another sense of nostalgia and wrestling history when you watch a brand new show, hearkening back to the days of the foundational days that made this stuff that we watch now.
Yeah, and I got to go to this one for a minute. Just so you know, those Astrid emotes should be available on all channels as far as I'm concerned. So make them available, damn it. So from there, Papa's folks, we're going to go to the PWI list. And no, we're not talking about the PWI 500 that you've all been wanting to see on everybody else's shows. No, we're talking about the PWI top 10 contenders for the MLW World Heavyweight Championship as of this writing. So the PWI does this from time to time on MLW. They'll put out a top 10 list. This is the people who are considered in contention for an opportunity to fight the champion. And we're going to go through this list, right through the whole list, and maybe just talk about it briefly afterwards. Number 10, we had King Mo, who would have been just recently joining MLW at the time, the former MMA fighter joining the list. Number 9, Low Key, the former MLW champion and an MLW mainstay, one of the originals from the company. Number 8, Mance Warner, who picked up a victory earlier in the night. Surprisingly, number 7, MJF, and considering that he would have been part of AEW at the time, I think they had some pretty big hopes that he was still going to be able to do some work over on the MLW side of things. Number 6, not surprisingly, Richard Holiday, who was starting to really look and be pushed like a star at this point. Brian Pillman Jr., number 5. We're going to talk about more about that young man here in a little bit on this program as well, too. Number 4, we got Filthy Tom Lawler, the former MLW World Heavyweight Champion. Then you got Davey Boy Smith Jr. in that mix up there, number 3. Number 2, surprisingly, the young GOAT Myron Reed. And not surprisingly because of his skill or anything, but when we got to the restart, which is not far after this point in time, I believe that Myron Reed was a lot lower on that list. Surprisingly, at number 2 here, to drop down to maybe, I think it was like 5, 6, I think, around the time of the restart, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I imagine that's one of those things. I think the wrestling magazines, with their ratings, if there was more than one belt in the company, you might get those top rankings, i.e., there would be a champion, then the number 1 would be, say, in this case, the national open weight champion. The number 2 would be the middleweight champion. And then the rest of the contenders would go on after that. I kind of had the feeling that's what they were doing here. But I'm trying to remember if they did it at some of the other times when we did that same list, because I think always it was Fatu champion and then Hammerstone number 1 because he was the national open weight champion. Same thing with the dub or something. They would have like the champion, and then the number 1 guy would be the intercontinental champion, and then the other contenders would come after that. But maybe that's what they're doing.
Pop Smokes, don't be silly. You know the other companies don't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yes, as you mentioned, Alexander Hammerstone did round out this list at number 1, the national open weight champion, undefeated in all his time working with that title. And then the champion, Jacob Fatu, undefeated, on a path of destruction. Nobody wants to get in his way, but they do want that championship. And there's 10 names right there that could be vying for it. We do know eventually who would get that opportunity and make one of the biggest matches of the restart in MLW. You can go catch that on previous episodes of Ring Respect Radio, because we did review that one as it happened when Hammerstone did eventually fight Jacob Fatu. But we did say we'd talk about Brian Pillman Jr. here a little bit more, because after this is when he was given the PWI's Rookie of the Year award for 2019. This was the second year in a row that he won it. We've seen so much growth from Brian Pillman Jr. as it's gone along. He's getting better as he goes. And this is just proof that people had belief in what he was doing. And I strongly believe Brian Pillman Jr. loves and respects wrestling enough that he wants to be one of the best out there.
Yeah, well, being Rookie of the Year 2 years in a row, that's pretty impressive. I don't know how that works, how you can be a rookie in your second year, but hey, it's the wild and wacky world of wrestling. I've seen much stranger things happen, but at any rate, they obviously see something in Pillman as well, and he's got a famous last name to work off of, including his famous father, and he's a good-looking athlete. He looks like his dad. He's embracing the gimmick. He's got the cool mullet and all that stuff, kind of working on his body. He's nothing much to speak of here, but has gotten better over the past couple of years, looking more like a wrestler, and his days in MLW, he's extremely green, and that's obvious by his promos and his ring work. But again, he's enthusiastic. He's showing up to all this stuff, and he's willing to be in a faction, the Hart Foundation, of the kind of second and third generation Hart family and Pillman family, and obviously the company sees some potential in him because they're giving him a push here, and it's almost looking like that push is a little too early for him, but whatever, he's obviously going to take this attention and run with it. And he's another guy that gets a big job out of some exposure on MLW, going to the billionaire's son's company there. And he's probably been making good money ever since, and wrestling once every 2 months. And that's about it.
I think he's actually seen quite a bit more than what some people are. And, he's become so confident that when you do see him, even over in AEW and everything, you can tell that confidence continues to rise, and that they're on the verge of something special with Brian Pillman Jr. So I hope nothing but the best for him, because, I know that he respects the sport, and I know that he believes in it. So I respect him at the same time. From there, speaking of Pillman Jr., he was the subject of a promo. He was a promo done by the members of Injustice talking about Pillman Jr. and him wanting to challenge for Myron Reed's middleweight championship, saying, come get it. Like, just come get it if you want it. They also had some words for Conan and also for the Laredo Kid who had lost earlier in the night. This was kind of that style of promo that we became very used to after the restart from Injustice, the black and white, kind of out in the streets, looking like guys just hanging out on the corner or whatever, and not afraid to let you know exactly what they're thinking.
Yeah, and I thought Injustice was a pretty effective faction for the time it was in. The guys in it were pretty good and pretty convincing in their portrayal of it. I thought this was good. They just seemed like some kids that you would kind of be scared of to walk by down the street late at night, and they're going to talk some trash to you. I think Myron Reed is clearly the standout talent in this group, and that's kind of obvious by his ring work and his mic work. But this was another situation where he stood up and said, "Hey, I'm not going to run from anybody. I want to keep this title, but I want matches in the ring, and I want good opponents because I want big wins." And it's that fearlessness and that confidence where you can kind of see that Myron Reed is not happy staying where he is. He's going to push forward, reach higher, and get better all the time. And God, we've seen him just improve tenfold over the last couple of years since we've been reviewing this show.
Yeah, and I caught one of his matches on Battle Slam this summer as well too. And I mean, he just continues to grow. I am so excited for the new season to see where Myron Reed's at now that he's in the Boom IA Fight Club. I think that is going to be so kick-ass. Him, Alex Kane, Mr. Thomas, and who knows where it goes. It might add more members in the new season for all we know. Anything could happen when MLW comes back.
Yeah, and there's talk that they should add a female to their group as well, and I think that's a good idea, especially if they finally get the featherweights division going, to get some kind of a good lady wrestler that does the suplex and Olympic style and strength style wrestling. It would be absolutely deadly.
Yeah, there's tons of them out there. They got to bring them in. Taya Valkyrie needs some strong competition for her belt. We know that she's got a mystery opponent this coming Sunday. So who knows who might show up at the tapings this Sunday. Again, if you're going to the tapings or happen to read results, no spoilers, please. We don't want to know. We already know about the national situation with the National Openweight Championship because they made that no secret. Still going to love the match either way. But at the same time, we don't want to know. So if you guys happen to ever know, don't let us know. We'll get to it. We come to you every Thursday with what's up to speed when it comes to MLW. Moving on from there, we had a backstage promo. Team Filthy are a little bit shooken up last week. I believe that it was Eric, the other member there, that had taken a loss to Davey Boy Smith Jr. They were trying to get their heads back in the game. That's when Lawler cut in with his promo on Killer Cross, getting ready for that main event. Man, this was just exactly what it needed to be, especially when Tom Lawler got to talk and he just was ready to fight. He laid it out. This is what I'm going to do to you, Cross. Let's go. Time for some ass kicking.
Yeah, and there's something about Tom Lawler that's very convincing and very real too. And you can see that this is a guy that's improved vastly on the mic since he turned to the professional wrestling side of things. I've heard some of his earlier promos, and it's just a little more primitive, a little more convoluted sort of thing, but he gets the hang of it. And by this time in this promo, he's looking like a natural, and he speaks very well. He speaks very clearly, and he's got this part of pro wrestling down pat, I think, and it just only helps to lead into what's a big heavyweight, not heavyweight title match, but a big heavyweight contenders bout here in the main event.
Yeah, and this one was going to be awesome. I can't wait to talk about it. It's coming up. But before we, did someone say Nash? We sure did. Papa Smokes did, in fact, Astrid, the natural Astrid Pizarro, getting the name drop in the show here tonight. But before we get to that big one-on-one big guy fight that we got coming up here, Papa Smokes, one more time, we went backstage. The Dynasty, they are very upset about the cheating that Mance Warner did, saying Gino's not to blame. Gino did not lose the match. He's not the one that cheated in this thing. It was Mance that cheated. That's the only way the guy could pick up a victory. And the only frustration they have at this moment is with Mance Warner and not with Gino Medina.
Yeah, the guys pulling together and showing signs of solidarity, even though you could kind of see that they weren't completely comfortable with Medina right off the bat. At least they show him this little bit of solidarity in this match and sticking with their guy.
Yeah, you bet. So from there, it's time, Papa Smokes. It's that time of the night, as always. Wait for it. Wait for it. It's time for the main event of the evening. This match scheduled for one fall.
One fall.
All right, there we go. Woo!
I'll be the crowd. Yeah.
You got it. All right, yeah. Warming up those pipes. Get them all nice and loose here on a Thursday night. And again, man, that audience retention, you guys are making me love this night. Thank you so much for making this debut a memorable night for us. This is probably the most exciting time I have had in my 6 years of doing stuff like this. God damn, this is awesome. Bro, what a great thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, I really have been putting in the practice. I have been spending time actually paying attention to different commentators, different announcers over the years, paying attention to videos that they do, whether it be boxing, MMA, wrestling, every sort of which one. So I have been trying to put in the work to get the vocals to match that kind of style. Because I have that aspiration. One time only, Papa Smokes, I want to be able to be a ring announcer for just one night. Just one night.
I could see that. I hope you get the chance. I think you'll hit a home run, Munson.
I really do too. And again, if not, I'm still very happy to spend Thursday nights with all of you guys. And again, hey, guess what, Pop Smokes? I got some cool news before we talk about the main event itself. I ain't done for the week. There's more coming up. I got more shit going on. And guess what? It's going to be on Sunday. So Sunday, you can join on Chris Parrish's Twitch account as myself and Chris Parrish. And I'm sure there will be other places you'll be able to find the show. But we're going to be bringing you the very first edition of Bustin' Out because brunchin' makes us feel good. It is going to be a kick-ass time with my brunch buster brother, Chris Parrish, on Sunday. So make sure you check that show out. It is going to be just awesome. Thursday nights, we're going to be doing this shit. We got Parrish and Astrid doing Tuesday nights, Carl and Joe doing Tuesday nights. All my favorite people are out there, and we have more of my favorite people that are going to be coming out doing more stuff here very, very soon. And I can't wait. I am going to be watching all the shows, making sure we send everybody to the top because that's where you all belong. And Sunday with the Brunch Busters. You got that right, Carl. It is going to be a hell of a time. But right now, you're with the Video Bros. It is Thursday night, and we got a main event to break down here for you when it was Filthy Tom Lawler taking on Killer Kross. And we're talking about the Filthy Tom Lawler. That is a heel now. And yes, Astrid, get the V out, as they like to say. This match, though, Bob's folks, I mean, this was a slugfest at times. Like, man, Killer Kross did not hold back when he was laying it into Tom Lawler and vice versa. I mean, this thing really started off with Kross showing just how strong he lays his damn strikes in, really taking it to the former champion, Filthy Tom Lawler, before Filthy Tom could come back and show what he does best. And that's the grappling, the reversals, the holds. And there was a whole lot of it. This was packed full of stuff I like.
Yeah, this was a pretty solid match, and there was really nothing fancy about it whatsoever. I think a lot of the star power of this match was done in the entrances and with the grapplers that were booked in this match. Tom Lawler comes out. He's a name. He's already established from the world of mixed martial arts and the UFC. People know him. People accept him as a threat and a real wrestler and such. Killer Kross comes out, and he's another story altogether. He's just so convincing as a huge, mean, psycho-looking guy. He's a spectacle when he comes to the ring with that music and the way he interacts with the fans, just even with his eyes alone, the way he stares and smiles and just the facial expressions on him. The guy's a star, man. He's money, and you could feel the hairs on your arms and the back of your neck stand up a little bit when a guy comes out with that kind of star power. He's never even really accomplished any huge things in pro wrestling, but he's one of those guys that when he walks into the arena, you know that his opponent's in trouble, and you know you're going to see some violent and wild shit in his match. It's exciting, and he's a spectacle all unto himself. So typical of these MLW title matches from around this time, they make a big deal of it. There's a long lead up. This match was only 10 minutes long, but the entire package, the entire segment was 22 minutes long with the entrances and all that stuff too. So showing the tail of the tape, having the ring announcer go over various things, including rules and weights and all that sporting stuff, and big long introductions and entrances. Really, just it's the kind of like the icing before the cake almost. It gets the fan in the perfect position to say, oh yeah, I'm ready to see these guys have a wild match. This is good. I'm ready. I'm tense. I'm nervous, and I want to see this. And I think the big fight feel of MLW title matches does just that, even on the free TV show Fusion.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a few things I wrote down here again, like Tom was really doing the work on the left arm, I believe, of Killer Cross. In fact, holding in that the guillotine choke at one point, even in Cross, then having to at one point stand up with all of his might, holding Tom Lawler the entire time in order to break that hold. But Tom didn't let go so easily. It wasn't just a one and done. Killer Cross really had to fend him off in this thing. And then, speaking about the hairs going up on your back, how about when Killer Cross smiled when Filthy Tom slapped the taste out of his mouth, as if he absolutely enjoyed the pain that Tom was bringing?
Yeah, and again, that's not a working punch. That was a real hard slap to the face. There's no going easy on that one or going light on that one. These guys were doing a spot where that's call it a strong style spot or whatever you want. They were smacking each other's faces pretty good to make it look convincing. And wasn't that a good one? There's a couple of blasts across the chest, but then a couple of good hard slaps to that mandible jaw area. And you know how that stings. Munson, I'm sure you've been slapped by a couple of ladies in your time, if I know you at all. And you know how that feels. It smarts right up there where the jaw connects to up by your ear. And that evil looking smile is he's Killer Cross just has so much star quality as a wrestler. He almost doesn't have to do anything. As soon as he gets in there, he's over.
You know, just because you brought it up, Bob Stokes, I will tell people one story, and no, it's not because I was trying to pick some lady up from a bar or anything like that. That's not me. Come on, I'm a married man. I've been with my wife for like 13 years, you guys. Come on. Jeez. I'm only 40. It's not like, anyway. So, back when I was doing acting classes, this was an event that we had done that we were putting on different performances throughout the weekend. Evil looky swell. I thought Pop was talking about Bobby's grinning for a second. Anyway, so we went to this thing, and there was these acting sessions in between, and one of them was doing improv, which is something I've always enjoyed doing. And one of the improv games at the time was called Beat the Seat. And the idea is that somebody is sitting on a park bench, and the idea is you come into the scene, and your actions are supposed to try to convince them to leave the bench so that you take over the bench. And so I came in, and it really took no effort at all. I just come in with a little bit of swagger, a little bit of a sway. I sat down next to the lady beside me. I gave her the old arm over top, and I'm just like, so how's it going? And that's all it took. Slap right across the old face, right across Bobby's face, just like so. And it wasn't theater slapping. That was real slapping. I got the taste slapped right out of my mouth. Everyone was worried for me, but guess what? I'm a tough guy. I can take it.
Well, what did you do to make her do that, Munson, is my question.
Look at this face. What did I do?
We couldn't see where your other hand was.
This is too much fun, Papa Smoke. So, here's the one. She was an unsafe worker. She sure was. I wasn't expecting it, but okay. At the same time, I did grow up being trained in boxing, and I've also taken like wrestling in high school as well too. So it's not like I was afraid to take a hit and all kind of thing. I was used to it. I wasn't afraid to get hit in the face by any means, and it has happened multiple times throughout my life. Sometimes drinks happen, people get stupid.
Yeah, I'm from Manitoba. I'll try and imagine what that's like.
Yeah, well, you're not from Saskatchewan where you can sit at a Riders game and get with all the people that are, a little out of control.
Yeah, you wear the wrong jersey at one of those games, and you're taking your life in your hands.
You really are. That's why you don't go to those games, even when your boys from Winnipeg are in town.
Well, yeah, that did happen one time. I won't get into it at this point, but
That's
it got a little nutty.
that's fair. We wouldn't want to run overtime boring people with football talk on a wrestling program now, would we? Anyway, back on track.
I get that reference.
We're going to go back on track, back on the rails. Killer Cross and Filthy Tom. The only thing I'll nitpick about this match is the dusty finish. I wanted to see a clean finish of some sorts between these two guys. Unfortunately, that's not what we got. In fact, we got a big old dusty finish here when Team Filthy came out for the attack on Killer Cross. But then the day was saved. The Von Erichs and Davey Boy Smith Jr. come out after that. And from there, they bait the challenge for a 4v4 tag matchup for next week on MLW Fusion. So it would be the Von Erichs, Davey Boy Smith Jr., and Killer Cross taking on Team Filthy. I kind of want to go watch episode 102 as we speak right now. Bob's supposed to see that go down.
I was curious as did Killer Cross participate in that match? He's usually only in for a shot at a time kind of thing.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know about the time he left to head on over to NXT for the very first time. And then, of course, he had his short stint with MLW that we'll probably get to see one more match out of from the Battle Riot tapings coming up in the new season. But, of course, he's gone on to bigger things. As you said, he presents himself like a star. He is a star, and clearly Triple H sees that in him. And that's why he's presenting him like one over on SmackDown on Friday nights. And, I mean, kudos. I mean, Go to the moon, Killer Cross, because you are a damn star. You'll be a champion before long over there, and everybody will see your brilliance there too. But yeah, this was a solid match between two guys. I thought I would have liked to have seen a different finish, but what it did leave me doing is wanting to see the next episode of Fusion.
For sure, and that's probably a big part of what this match was about, was to get some heat going between those two factions. It's kind of weird that Davey Boy Smith is not participating in his own Heart Foundation faction, but in this one. But at any rate, they needed a big guy to fill out that team, and these teams are perfectly logical to me. Team Filthy with a very weak link in theirs with that what was his name? Kit Carson.
Kit Osborne.
Kit Osborne, yeah. I don't know about that guy, but at any rate, we should maybe watch that next one and review it, or maybe we'll just watch it in our own time. But I'm kind of fascinated by Killer Cross's little appearances in MLW because he makes such a big splash in a smaller company.
And I can't wait to see what he throws down inside the Battle Riot 4 once they start airing that one with the new season of Fusion as well, too. I think that's going to be kick-ass, as well as you're going to be able to see a matchup featuring Scarlett Bordeaux, who took place in the Battle Riot tapings as well, too. So prior to her going back to the WWE, you got a match in MLW as well, too. So fantastic. That's going to be coming up on the new season of MLW. I've had so much fun, Bob Smokes. I don't know if it is happening next Thursday or we'll still be doing the retroactive pieces here for you guys, or whether we're going to be starting to talk about the new season of Fusion, but we know it's coming up very, very shortly. We know this Sunday they are doing some new tapings for MLW Fusion television. So we got to imagine that season is going to be kicking off very soon. We've got some new names coming into the fold. We've got the Super Series coming up, which is going to be featuring AAA, Dragon Gate, and I can't believe what else there? Can we raid Quest for Jewels? Mike, the ref, you goddamn right we can go over to there. I will take care of that in a moment here as we come to an end of this show. Not quick at it, but I will make it happen, my friend, because I trust you, and I know Quest for Jewels is a great channel. But yeah, overall, man, I had a hell of a time watching this MLW Fusion episode. I thought it was top notch. This is exactly what makes me an MLW fan. And you know what makes me a fan of pro wrestling? It's seeing those damn numbers that we retained all night. Thank you to everyone. God damn, this has been the best night ever. Awesome. 28 views, and that number has not really been dropping this whole time. 1 hour and a half out of your Thursday night. Man, I love every single one of you. Ole to each of you. Fantastic. Papa Smokes, your thoughts overall on the episode before we say our goodbyes and head on over to go and raid the channel of Quest for Jewels.
Well, the MLW episode was quite enjoyable and a good one. And I also enjoyed doing this episode, the two-parter with a little talk about Judo Gene Labelle, and then also a MLW Fusion episode doing our reviews here. It's great to be back. It's great to be on our own 2 feet again, and this is good stuff. I'm pumped for the future. Going to keep the nose to the grindstone, working all these Thursday evenings, doing prep, getting ready, getting the headphones on, and talking some wrestling. Thanks to everybody and all our friends that watch this. We appreciate this so much. Thanks.
Yeah, means the absolute world, because we can't do it without you guys. You're helping us get to the moon, and we're going to do the same for each and every single one of you, our good friends that continue to push us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Papa Smokes, that's going to bring a wrap to the very first episode. But my man, I got to ask you, where can the people find you? Where can they reach out to you outside of right here on the Video Bros Network?
Well, if you're a contributor to Elon Musk's free speech wonderland known as Twitter, I am at smokes_papa. And if you want to check me out on Twitch, I'm at papa_smokes_.
Yes, and if you want to catch me, you can find me at Real Bobby Munson, because if you want to know the true story, the fake Bobby Munson was in Sentence of Anarchy, and I've got the goddamn ID that proves that I'm the real deal right over here. So you can catch me there on the socials. You can catch us on Instagram at Video Bros SK, and again, you can catch us Prairie Pro Wrestling every Saturday with new match releases each and every Saturday on the channel there. It is a fantastic time. Thank you, every single one of you, for tuning in to the first ever live edition of Ring Respect Radio and the first ever edition of Fusion right here on the Video Bros Network. We are going to give a little outro, and then we're going to head on over to Raid Quest for Jewels. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and have a wonderful night. We will see you Sunday for Busted Out, and next Thursday for more Video Bros.
I made this shit last. Burning down to the wake up call, to the sun grows cold to the